What's up, guys? Teddy Cornwell here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk. And as they say, there is just something about the underdog. And I mean, today we have an absolute beast on the podcast. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Daniel Powter. What
What's up,
is up
guys?
there? How you doing today, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me, man. It's a real pleasure and an honor to sit down and have a chat with you. You've got my Christmas tree in the back there. I hope that's not culturally offensive to some of your viewers, but there you go.
And I love Christmas trees, so I think it's perfect there. I wish it was lit up, but
Right.
obviously lighting sometimes, Daniel, I don't know if I'd be able to see your dope ass face. So here we are, and Daniel, I've been having this on my mind. Is it true, as a child, you played the violin at the age of 4, which is impressive alone. But
Right.
then here's where I'm really interested. You switched to the piano
Right.
at 16 years old, and it's almost like this sounds like a movie, but a group of children, bullied you in the schoolyard
Right.
and ultimately destroyed your violin.
Right.
I believe everything happens for a reason. Is
Right.
it sucked there? But
Right.
would you mind talking a little more about how that little simple incident kind of shaped you?
Yeah, I mean, I think my mom was this incredible musician. She was like a concert pianist. And I think sort of secretly under her own direction and development, she really wanted me to turn into some sort of virtuoso violinist, like I don't know, like an Ixat Perlman or something like that. And but I think as I was going through, starting at 4 or 5, 6, 7, um, you know, definitely it was profound to sort of been bullied and my violin destroyed and all that stuff. But I think really what it was is the change. It was kind of a blessing at the same time because I really wanted to move away from playing a solo instrument to being able to play a more versatile instrument in the sense of like being able to write a song. Like because like for example, a piano, you can represent the entire band in a piano, right? You've got your bass down on the left side, you've got your mids and you've got your highs on the right side. So I was able to create music and create sounds and songs that I otherwise couldn't do with the violin. So maybe a blessing in disguise. I
Maybe a
don't know.
blessing in disguise, and I'm sure those bullies regret it now. And obviously, excuse my French for bullies, but
Yeah.
to me, you've always kind of been an underdog, and that's why I really wanted you on the podcast, obviously, because you talk about your dyslexia, you talk about how you had trouble in the university that you went to reading music, and
Right.
ultimately dropped out at 20 years old. And again, it's almost like life has a weird way of being like giving you a wake up call and like
Right.
this needed to happen in order to pursue your own musical career, Daniel. And
Absolutely.
obviously you
Absolutely.
started young too, man. Like you really were a musical virtuoso. It's like insane.
Wow.
4 years old doing the violin. I think I
Yeah.
had trouble playing the piano at age 23, and I'm 23 right now. So music is a gift, and I've never been able to have that gift.
Right.
Um, but I mean, would you mind talking about how you kind of created your own destiny in terms of dropping out of college
Yeah.
and doing music on your own?
I went to school with some guys that were like signed to Blue Note in New York and really top jazz players, piano players and horn players. And I remember sitting in these practice wangers, like these were sort of like glass cubes where you'd have a piano, and I would practice 5, 6 hours a day. And I could remember playing so much on those keyboards that I had like there was blood on the keyboards, right? Like playing, trying to keep up. And then I just kind of come to the conclusion like I'm never gonna be that great of a player. You know what I mean? Like and really when you're in school, you're destined to either be a performer or a teacher or a producer. And I didn't see myself, being able to be any of those things. I really didn't see myself as a performer. Turns out I became one, but what I saw was a songwriter. I love to write songs, and there was no class for songwriting. You know what I mean? There was no place for me to really go. So I felt like I really reached that ceiling in school quickly, and so I left. I just packed it in.
And it's almost like school is kind of constrictive. It is kind of it's not for everyone. That's
Yeah,
simply as
exactly.
it is, and especially for musicians,
Right,
creativity is something that can't be really taught.
right,
I feel like, in my opinion, and speaking of performers, speaking of artists, you did actually become that, as
right,
you moved to Vancouver. That was your next step
right,
at age
right,
22.
right,
And you met your producer, and you actually
right,
released your debut studio album,
right,
"I'm Your Betty," on
right.
June
Yeah,
21st, 2000. So, I mean, kind of closely after. And
yeah,
y- my
yeah.
question to you is, what is the actual process of making a record like? I mean, we all see these records just constantly
Right.
drop. What is
Well, I can tell you a funny story about that record. I actually own all the copies of that record, but there are a few got sold. But I actually signed a small independent, like basically distribution deal in Canada, right? And but right before that record, like as it was about to come out, I'd done the studio album with Warner Brothers.
Mhm.
And so they're like, we can't have that record come out. So I think they bought all the records. So, I mean, there's a few that leaked out. You might have been able to get one, but yeah, that's a funny thing because they're like, we don't want this record out because it was definitely, a sophomore, your first record. I was like, yeah, this is pretty rough. But anyway, your question was, what's it like to make an album?
Yeah, no, that is pretty cool that there's limited editions of your
Yeah.
albums, Daniel. That is, I'm on a treasure hunt now, so
Yeah.
that's
I
pretty
think
damn
I have them
cool.
in storage somewhere, like 7,000 records we bought, maybe. I don't know. You know, it's funny. But I think if the question is like, what's it like to make a record? I think it depends on who you're working with.
Huh.
You know, every producer has their own process. When I really feel like I made my first record was the Bad Day album. That was my first record because before that it was more just like I was working with an engineer, but I wasn't working with a record producer. Um, so that would be probably really my first real experience on an album. And with Mitchell and Jeff, it was really quick. Everything happened really fast, like songs written, recorded like really quickly. And then I've done records like one with Linda Perry where I think we took 6 months to make the record. So everybody has their own process. I tend to kind of like to move quickly because I always feel like when you're making something or creating something, your first instinct is 9 times out of 10 is the right instinct. But if you give yourself too much time, you can really start second guessing yourself, right? So I learned that really early that like everything that I was doing was time sensitive because I feel like time sensitivity allows for creativity.
I I I think
Yeah.
that is true. I think second guessing is, your first thing is kinda
Yeah.
that's the golden thing, it's almost like that's
Right.
your first brainchild. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
something's gotta be right there, and then, speaking of that album, it did okay, and obviously, it was released in mid-2005, and I have to ask, did you know did you feel that this song would blow up? Was there a feeling you're like, yeah, this song is, I put my all into it, the message, just my whole voice. Did you know that it was going to blow up
I,
like it did?
I felt, listen, I didn't know. I mean, nobody can say they really know, but, and if they do, they're lying to you. But I felt like there was something in the song that would resonate with people in a way that maybe wouldn't have resonated with some of the other songs I'd written. But you have to understand what was happening there in 2006, whatever it was, 7, 5, 6. It was really Pro Tools rock at that time. It was super Corn. It was Limp Bizkit. It started moving into that kind of Pro Tools rock stuff was really big then, and there wasn't anything going on like with what I was doing. So it was really difficult to get it going. We started I got that a Coca-Cola commercial in France,
Yep.
and that was the polar bears commercial and just exploded. It was just like a virus. I mean, it just basically just started in France and then it just kind of kept going over to Scandinavia, down into like, all through Europe. And then it was really interesting how it worked. And I think the reason that it did work, by the way, is because we started it there in Europe. I think if we tried to start Bad Day in the US, I think we would have failed.
Wow.
But we really were patient and methodical, and nobody believed in it. Nobody believed in that song. Nobody believed in the record. I was lucky enough to have signed directly to the CEO of Warner, so he was patient. Sorry, he was patient, and we made it work.
And you did make it work. And there is something about the Underdog, even though it's a song, that doubt. I mean, I just love it as
Right.
it didn't really become an underdog after that. As it was the
Right.
first song to sell 2 million digital copies in the US, and it
Right.
didn't stop there. It eventually went triple platinum in
Right.
America and also shipped platinum units in Australia, Canada, and the UK. And
Yeah.
I mean, how does, I know this is a silly question, is there a method that one can create a successful song, whether that be having it peer reviewed, or is it kind of just a, like you said, a one take, that first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I see. I think all the greatest songs in the world were already written, and I'm not necessarily putting a song like Bad Day in that category, but it's just like they're already there. You know what I mean? And it's those songs where they just write themselves. I know that sounds funny to sort of somebody that maybe doesn't write songs a lot, but people that do write songs will be able to tell you that there are certain songs that just, I don't know, they just kind of write themselves. But your question, what was your question again?
It was more in terms of, can one write a successful song with knowing, or again, does it, like you mentioned earlier, it kind of just happens? And I guess I want to turn to, it did happen for you. What was it like finally people knowing your name after the blood on the piano? Just everything. What was it like? I don't think we can understand truly what it was like. You talked about it's a virus, and it's a virus that
Yeah.
got people knowing who you were. I mean, I'm sure your life changed differently after that.
Yeah, it did, but it took a long time for me to be able to process what was happening, because when you're in that situation where you're working I was on the road for 2 years with that record, and
Wow.
promotion alone would be months at a time. And you're always in the kind of, like, I look at it like you're in the eye of the hurricane all the time. So you don't really notice the chaos so much because it's sort of on the peripheral, like it's just outside you and it's just spinning. Like I mean, the minute that Warner had success with it, I mean, they just dump all their resources into it, right? And once that happens, then it's like you're gonna have to like kind of come up to a whole new level of like work and health and what it's going to do to you and what it's going to rob you, but you're never prepared for it. So it's a double-edged sword, as though it was making accumulating a lot of success, but at the same time it was disintegrating me as a person. It was just like, I can remember doing I remember doing Milan, Berlin, and Paris in one day. TV shows in all of those countries in one day. Like that's the kind of life I was living. And it's like, and as much as you can fantasize and you can say like, and by the way, I'm blessed and I'm grateful for what's happened for me. I mean, I don't have to like stress out for, what I mean? I've got an amazing life. But back then, man, it was really hard. Like, it was just, you never see family. I mean, you have to make a lot of sacrifices. And you know what? A lot of people are willing to make those sacrifices. But after 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I wasn't willing to make those sacrifices anymore. And so it was, as much as I was, when I would come home, I was like, wow, I can buy a house now. Wow, I can buy, wow, this is really nice. I mean, it's funny. I never even realized I had any money until I came home, you know? And now those things were great, but it took a lot, man. It robbed a lot from me. Like my family, I never got to see my family, you know, and I never saw my friends. I never saw my parents. And I was always on my own. I was left alone all the time. So I would just go from, I'm sort of dragging this out a little bit too, so you can edit this, but
No, I'm
I
good.
basically would just live in hotels all around the world and be by myself almost all the time. And after a while, it becomes incredibly depressing, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you put it on the
Yeah.
nail on the head, Daniel. It's like a two-headed or a double-edged sword. Obviously, that fame is what we all dream of, and
Right.
and to give you credit, you did deserve it because you did work your ass off,
Right.
and that is something that you always got to remember. But obviously, there's a lot that comes with it in your
Right.
profession, obviously, of being a famous person. And it kind of almost makes me realize what you said about how it was a lot. Now I'm looking at these younger
Yeah.
child singers or younger actors who
Yeah.
go to fame, and we often see some of them just kind of crash and burn, and
Yeah.
it's almost like, well, shoot, we always judge them like they had all this success, but it's almost like, well, if I was in that situation at that young age and I wasn't that mature yet, and this all happened to me, I don't know how I'd handle it. I don't know how I would handle it, and that is a really interesting point in
Yeah.
terms of. And you have produced some absolute bangers, and I
Yeah.
just broke up and with my girlfriend. I was like,
Oh
I
man, I'm
should say this.
sorry.
No, no, all good. And "Don't Give Up on Me" was that song, and
Oh,
I
that's
mean, it's almost like you do have a lot of other hits, and you know, obviously this is a question I have had to ask, and I feel like it's an interesting question. One hit wonders are not necessarily a bad thing, and I say that because I do believe you have some other amazing songs. Obviously, one of your hits did go viral, and that's just the name of the
right.
game.
Right. Right.
Does it ever bother that you, or upset you that some people do consider you a one hit wonder and not a
Well,
phenomenal artist in general?
it's funny because yeah, I've heard that, but the funniest part about it is that they're basing that on what they know about Billboard Top 100 music.
Yep.
They're basing that knowledge of what I labeling me based on one fucking country in the world, which is the U.S.
Yeah.
Right? The fact of the matter is, Free Loop streams in Southeast Asia twice as much as Bad Day does. So if that's not considered a hit in the U.S., it's streaming like 85 million times a month or something like that in China. Like, I mean, it's like, so I guess it's sort of more like,
Get their facts right almost in a
well,
way.
it's sort of like, it doesn't bother me so much because, and I've had other songs with it really, it, yeah, no, it doesn't really bother me because what that song allowed me to do is what I always wanted to do. That song opened up a gateway for me to access other artists and write with them, whether it's in Nashville, whether I went to Germany this year to write with artists there. I've been in the summer, I went to Japan to work with artists, some artists there. So Bad Day was really just my calling card. It's like if you're giving someone a business card, that's all it was for me.
Yeah.
It was this monstrous hit, but really, I wasn't going to go chase, I wasn't going to spend a lot more time chasing another hit. But what I got to do was I can write with people, anybody I want, anytime and that's what it did for me. So in that sense, I'm fine with being a one hit wonder, because again, it opened up Pandora's box for me. The
Yeah.
accessibility I have now to write with other artists is like, boom.
And obviously, I wasn't saying you were a one-hit wonder. I
No,
think
no,
in
no.
terms of, it's almost like people will always look at that one statistic that, Billboard one-hit wonders are people
Right,
who don't have their second hit in the top 25 or
right,
something crazy like
right.
that, and it's almost like, well, it's just a very hard, because like you said, music
Well, I
is.
think too, the thing too that people just don't understand now is that I just have enough insider information on how the industry works now. Like that didn't work like that when I was made, because I was selling physical records.
Yeah.
So physical albums are like that places you in a chart, right? So being on Billboard and being number one on Billboard was based on radio play, physical sale. It's based on all those things. Now, just between you and me, you can pay for a chart position at Billboard. You can pay Billboard and they'll chart your song for you. That's why when you see Bad Bunny in the charts 25 times in the top 100, it's not because he's streaming more than that. That's all payola. right? The American Music Awards, that's also payola. You can pay for those. I got tons of inside information. So what I'm saying is the industry now is totally for sale. Whereas before there was a little bit of integrity with chart positions, with the Grammys, now it's just whoever can spend the money, so the majors will spend a ton of money on their frontline acts, top line acts, but that's all for sale.
That is true. Wow. So you're saying if I make a song, Daniel, and it's horrendous, I can pay my way up to be on the Billboard.
Yeah, sure.
Let's go. All
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
You
like
and I can
that.
write a hit tomorrow. We can have it at number one.
All right. Hell yeah. I'll give you a few
Yeah.
million to do that,
No,
Daniel.
it's pretty crazy. It's really actually what it is it's sad. It's kind of like,
I was going to ask that.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's like a big producer, and he was saying, do you know that there like 42,000 songs come out a week on Spotify? 42,000 new songs hit Spotify every week. Now, back in my time, like when you were obviously much younger, the record labels were always the gatekeepers, right? Like the record labels, because it was physical sales, the labels would be like, you are signed, you're not signed. And, the cream kind of would always rise to the top. That's why some of the best music we ever heard that we grew up with was all signed by the gatekeepers, right? Because they could kind of,
Control it.
the stuff but now there are no gatekeepers. So that means anybody and everybody is like putting music out, right? So the pool of music has become so diluted that I don't even know how people can focus on anything that's coming out anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you get any attention to a song when 42,000 songs are coming out the same week? That's a week, dude. That's a week. That's like, what is that? 420,000 a month. So multiply that by, that's like over 4 million. That's 5 million songs a year, new songs a year.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy, right? Because now everybody's making them. And it's I don't know. Things have just changed in such a dramatic a way that I don't really see how it gets better. But I'll tell you one thing that's happening, and I don't know if is catalog music is really blowing up again. Catalog meaning like you go back to their old, like the label has a catalog, right? For example, they're not the current artist, but say Warner, for example, has Prince, they have Madonna, they have Fleetwood Mac, they have me, they have, but those are catalog artists. In other words, they're sort of dormant. However, that music is streaming as well as, if not better than, the frontline music. So it's interesting how record labels, to me, still put in so much money into their frontline guys who are completely crashing and burning. Like they're not successful. Where they should put it in is back in the catalog again, reintroducing catalog. Anyway,
And
that was a lot. Sorry.
No, I found it very interesting. I didn't obviously know that. That is something, as a musician that you would know more than me in having I'm going to give it to you, an actual hit,
Right.
So that is credit to you highly. And it's almost like, to me, it's like, well, damn, how many good songs am I now actually missing because they don't have the necessary money to get up there. They have so much competition. It's
And that's just the point. That's exactly the point. Like there are these musicians that are making these really cool indie records that are getting swallowed up by people making TikTok dance videos, right? Like it's it's all kind of merging into one cesspool of, I don't know. I don't know anymore, but I also don't want to look like I'm cynical because I'm, 51 years old now. So that can kind of come across too, right? Like I'm not young and I remember my parents didn't like my music. So maybe I'm the same way. I don't like the young music, but I really don't like it. Like I really don't like it at all.
And you know what? I don't really listen to much of the new music either. And I am 23 years old. I feel like I would be listening to that prime music. Now I'm still listening to, kind of things I grew up on. So it's almost like we are listening to what we grew up on, and we see these new music. I mean, some of this music I hear, it's just like I don't know what's going on, and I'm not a musician, but to me, I'm sure for a musician, it's just like horrendous to you, which is really interesting to me. So, Daniel, I kind of am really interested in this question, and this is my really last question to you,
Okay.
and the $1,000,000 question to you. What is your biggest tip for someone who is looking to become, I don't even want to say successful artists, an artist in general, with today's modern
Right.
kind of music and how it's going? What is your biggest tip for someone who's
I
looking to
think
become a musician?
I think a musician and like a true artist, someone who like I would say you have to be in a situation where this is all you can do, right? Like it's not a calling. It's like I can't see myself. I mean, for me, it was like I just didn't know what else. There was. It was almost like I was born to be involved in music in certain ways. And I think real artists are like there's no option.
Yeah.
They can't be doctors. They can't be lawyers. They can't be teachers or mechanics. They have to do something musical because that's the only way that they can express themselves. And that's a true
Yeah.
that's a true artist. But most people like that do. I would say that's probably 99% of the people that are doing music right now probably aren't those things. But the second thing is you got to create your own lane. You know what I mean? Like you have to be able to sit down, I think, play something, write something, but like no matter what people say to you, like no matter how they try to shape your music or where they push, you have to be so honest and truthful about who you are and what kind of music you're making, and don't let anybody change that. Because trust me, if you get to a level where they want to sign you, that's the first thing they're going to try to do. So they're going to try to push you a little bit more this way, or probably homogenize you a little bit and push you up the middle. But if you can stay in your lane and you believe in what you're doing, and that's what I did. I was told by every label I saw that they closed the door on me. It was like, this music will never work. And I had producers saying, hey, we can shape it to make it sound like something that would work on radio. I said, no, it's got to be this. I mean, if you listen to that first records, Bad Days is really a bad sounding record. Like if you put it up on audio, some really nice Wi-Fi system, that song sounds like shit. Like it's really bad, but it didn't matter. It was like that, but that's the vibe. That's what I wanted, And so what I always think when I talk to, I've talked to some kids that were on Atlantic, they just subsequently got dropped. And, I was saying to them, you gotta stay in your lane. You gotta be able to create something, because I said, I would rather be a big fish in a small pond than be like, just another, same song, same sounding that's on the record, because to me, that's just music that lives forever, will live in a sea of complete mediocrity.
Yeah.
Right? Mediocrity is just repetition on top of repetition. That becomes mediocre. But if you're able to like do something that's completely different and you can live in that lane, yeah, you might not become, it's almost like, what would I call it? Counter programming, right? Like if the top songs are, this, and this, and they're all the same, then write something and create something that sounds completely different than that. And the likelihood of it being successful is like maybe 3%. But if it is, it's going to be the biggest song in the world.
And it's almost just simply stay true to yourself. Be
Absolutely.
yourself. I mean, again, I think music and is an art, and it's an art to you. I mean, we don't see paintings the same necessarily. We see different styles of it. And I'm not a musician, but I feel like I don't want to hear the same melody. I don't want to hear the same rap. I want to hear unique. I want to hear different voices, and I think it is kind of interesting that while you can learn instruments and you can practice and learn singing, I think singing is a gift,
Right.
And I think I don't want to say that not everyone can be it, because everyone can be whatever you want to be, but it's almost like you do have to be kind of born and drawn to it. I can't sing for the life of me, so I can't be a singer. Could I be a musician?
The point that was trying to really make is that you got to stay brave, and you've got to stay your compass has to be true north all the time in this business, because even the music that you're listening to on the radio probably wasn't that before it got to the record label, right? It was probably a little different. And then A&R and whoever shapes it. But I stayed man, I think I was just blissfully ignorant, because I can remember my record, the CEO of the label saying to me, I don't want you to work with this producer, but I'm going to give you enough rope to hang yourself. And I went, okay, thanks. And I worked with them anyway, and it all worked out. But it's being able to be that steadfast and strong inside yourself to say no. And trust me, I've told people this a million times. I've said, I would rather go to sleep at night with my head hitting the pillow, knowing that I stayed true to myself and everything, I made every decision and I failed. I'd rather have that feeling than going to bed knowing I let myself become completely, taken over by a record label. I did everything they said and I changed my music to suit their needs. I can't sleep like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like because either way, you've got one shot. You're only going to get one shot to make a first impression. So stick to your guns, man, and stay in your lane and create what resonates inside of you and what's real. And that's it.
Damn.
Yeah.
I think that is just so true. I needed to hear that. Stay true, stay in your lane, do your thing.
Yeah.
If someone says it's not working, fuck them. I think
Exactly.
that's just how it is in life. Yeah, you can't listen to doubt. You can't listen to what others say, and I think that's the big message, because oftentimes in this modern society, we want to be like everyone. I think
the deck was stacked against me. I had to roll a boulder up a mountain on my own.
Yep.
Nobody was there to help me because nobody believed in it. And then I made the record that nobody believed in. And I did everything that nobody believed in, except for me. And one other person, Gary Stamler, my manager, and one guy at Warner Brothers called Steve Margot. Those were the only two people that were in my corner. Everyone else said this is never going to work.
And I kind of can relate. It's almost like if you listen, I tell people, they're like, you get all these good guests, but you're not blowing up. It's like, if I listen to what everyone say, I wouldn't even have the podcast in the first place.
Exactly.
And to me, I go to sleep, like you said, I go to sleep having fun,
Yeah.
and I think that's what it's all about. And now I do have one final question for you.
Okay.
What is it actually like when you're in the grocery store, when you're in the mall, and Bad Day comes on? I mean, what's that like? I actually am really interested.
It's funny. I was in, I can tell you a funny story. So first of all, I really don't notice it that much anymore.
Really?
If I hear it, I kind of like, sometimes I even think it's a different song. But in the summer, I was in a place called Dearborn, Minnesota. And I was there for my son's hockey school, summer school. And it was playing at this supermarket, and I was checking out, and the girl at the counter looked at me. She goes, "Oh, I hate this song. I can't stand this song." And I was like, "Yeah." I can't remember what I said. I said, "Well, at least you didn't write it, right?" She never found out it was me, but it was pretty funny.
I didn't write.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I can't blame
Gosh.
people for not standing that song, man. It was played so much.
I think it's probably the replay at the supermarket where she worked, or where I think it's just the constant replay. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear my own podcast constantly
Yeah.
replayed. I can't imagine that on rap or something like that. And wow, but I mean, it's almost like the message is stay true to yourself, be the underdog. If anyone's watching this and you're doing something, and whether it be going to a college you want to go to, or becoming a professional baseball player, or I don't know. If someone's telling you can't, I don't think that's something that should stop you. In fact, I think that's what you should use as motivation. I think that's the best motivation in the damn fucking world, when someone tells you you can't, Daniel. And I know,
Yeah.
I want to say that probably motivated the hell out of you to prove them wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking with the man himself, Daniel Powter. And Daniel, it has been such an honor and privilege talking to you, listening about, your come up, how you rose to fame, how you handled it with class. And, before we
Well, I
go,
didn't always handle it with class, but I did the best I could.
you know what they say, that's all that matters. Human beings are not
Right.
perfect. If we can if the best is all you can ask for. That's what my dad always
That's
told me. And
right.
and before we go, is there anything you want to plug? Where can we find your social media? Do you have any new songs coming out? I'm asking that question
We
for
do
me more than the
actually.
listeners.
We will. What's funny? I haven't released a song in, I don't know, like forever, right? I put some stuff out with some other artists, but I'm actually going to put out my first song, I think I want to say it's probably going to be close to 10, maybe, no, not 10, maybe 5 years. So this will be the first one. But I'm not going to tell you what it is because you'll hear it, you'll see it when you see it. But it's going to be in that mixing pile of like 4,000 other songs. It'll be right in there.
Hey, when that song comes out, I mean, I will be promoting the hell out of it. I
Well,
can't wait, man.
it sounds like stuff that I wrote 15, 16 years ago. Because that's all I can do. That's all I know how to do, you know? So
Hey, going back to staying true to yourself. And Daniel, what is that social media handles that we can find you on, sir?
So I'm on Instagram. I'm at D Powter Music. You can find me there.
Music.
I don't really do anything else.
That's fair. And obviously Daniel's music is on Spotify, on Apple, on every streaming platform. I mean, guys, please go check it out because there are just some bangers on it. And I mean, just go check it out. I don't even have anything to say. Some of my favorite songs, some of my favorite albums, and I'm personally really fucking excited to hear this. Is it an album or is it a single?
This is going to be a single.
Ooh.
Yeah. And you know what? I'll tell you what I'll do. Just before we put it out, I'll send it to you so you can have the first listen before we release it. As long as you don't play it for anybody else, I'll play it for you first.
I will not. I will not. That is pinky promise. And when it comes out, I will personally promote the fuck out of it.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to send it to you right now so you'll have it, and then you can take a listen to it and then email me back. But it sounds like this band from the 50s and 60s called the Monkees. Do you remember them?
I have heard of their songs.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not saying I listen to them, but I have heard of their songs. My dad used to play some of their songs. I mean,
yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay.
Like Daydream Believer. Remember that one?
I do not, but I will listen to that, and I mean, I can't wait to listen to that vibe. And I mean, first person to follow Daniel on Instagram and put one of his songs on your story, I will send you a personalized care package. And guys, I swear, if you guys do not check out this new song, I mean, come on now, at the gym, just walking. I'm pumped for this song, Daniel. I really am, man. Wow. Guys, please don't forget to like, comment, and obviously just check out Daniel's content. I mean, we grew up with your music, Daniel. It ain't going anywhere,
awesome.
man. Don't forget.
This has been such a fun time, man. I thank you, man. You're so enthusiastic. You're gonna go far. You're gonna go places.
Hell yeah. Hey, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, Daniel Powter and the Underdog.